That's fine. I want to continue our rant. Welcome back to the Hoser Hockey Podcast.
Great
I'm
start.
going to be your host today, Dave, with my panelists, James and Logan. I'm kind of fired up for the show. We were talking about a specific player near and dear to our hearts,
Their
who I
hearts.
got offered a trade. I have them in fantasy. This is one Canucks fans' favorite, Elias Pettersson. And I got offered to trade Pettersson for Crosby 1-for-1. I don't know if I should take it. Logan was saying that Pettersson might only get 80, but he could get as high as 110 points. Versus Crosby's kind of money in the bank for at least like 85, 90, right?
Yeah,
He's gonna get a point per game. He's gonna break the
Yeah, like
record.
for
He's gonna
sure.
do it. It's a safe
For
bet, I'll
sure.
say.
You got to
That's
ask yourself if there's a way to modify the trade just to try to like get a little bit more out of this. Because if the
Mm,
person's offering you the trade, it means they really want Petey.
well. You look
yeah.
at the guy he's offering. He has three Canucks currently on his team:
That guy is a
Russ,
diehard Canucks
Garland,
fan. I know who
and
he
Lankinen.
is.
Right?
He
Yeah, and
would
this
he
is why
might
I
overpay
don't
for Canucks players.
I want to keep him just out of spite, not even because I think PD will necessarily be better for me than Crosby, but just so he doesn't have him.
I say you guys
Fuck you,
should do
You just
it.
got to look at the team though and
my
see
player.
what pieces. Like look at a
Hey,
player like who look at like the
should have
last
drafted
player you
him.
drafted. What was that?
I said should have drafted him. If you wanted him so bad, you should have drafted him. Like he was there, you could have picked him, but they didn't, so you don't get him.
I
Sucks.
s-
Boo.
find out who he drafted that round, and then trade for that player.
Well, he's at Crosby before PD, I think.
Yeah,
I think it was the
So then
same
now that
round.
you're offering to like, I don't know. Anyways, if it's not about fantasy. That's fucking irrelevant. We're talking Nux earlier, and or Logan and I were specifically talking about just like the tiers of players. And I was he was saying that like who are you saying like the best players on the Canucks in a certain order are like
I say
Hughes,
for Canucks
Miller.
fans and who they want on the fantasy purely and like, for skill, I'd say
Yeah,
Hughes and Miller are first top two. Those are the
yeah.
ones who go interchange between back and forth. Now say Petey, Besser, Hronik, um,
Yeah.
Garland's up there
I
now.
got Hronik late in fantasy last year, and he was killer for
I feel
me.
like
Hronik
DeBrusque is a
falls because
sleeper.
yeah, Hronik and DeBrusque are kind of sleepers because everyone kind of forgets
Yeah.
they're on the Canucks.
No, for sure. And especially since Hronek's often playing with Hughes, it's like
Yeah,
that's just points.
I
Like
know
easy points.
exactly.
No, but what I was saying was like I think Hughes is a tier like above the rest of the Canucks players, and then you kind of
Yes,
get like Miller and Petey, and then like and like Garland and Besser are all kind of like a
definitely
conglomerate.
skill wise, I would say that's
Yeah,
definitely
but like
where to
Hughes
go.
is a literal like a game breaking like there's only like two players that kind of are like him in the NHL and
Yeah,
like McDavid and McCarr. Like
I'd say
the
McKinnon's up there too.
way no, but I mean yeah, McKinnon's different though because McKinnon like the team doesn't
I would
run
s-
through him.
I would say
McKinnon's just
McKinnon's
kind of like a bull that goes through a wall and then everyone kind of follows behind him. Versus like
yes.
Hughes, like the offense kind of like runs through him.
See,
Like he's like
I
you
think
kind of
if you look at
understand
the
what I'm
stat,
saying?
yeah, I think if you look at the stats, though, I think McKinnon, like the stats between McKinnon and McCarr, and McKinnon was up McCarr is actually a lot higher than McCarr was up McKinnon. Like McKinnon actually produces at a higher rate, and the team around him does. Like I think McKinnon and McCarr produce at like a 60% rate, with
I'm not
McKinnon
just
by
talking about
himself
production though, as
50%.
much as I'm talking about like the actual flow of a
Yeah,
game, the transition from your zone through the neutral zone to the opponent's zone,
I
holding
mean
the
when I
puck, cycling, like all that stuff. Like when you watch Hughes on the ice, the game flows through him. The opponents work around him specifically. The Canucks flow through him. He's like a one man tree. Like the elite forwards, like it's a little bit of a different game. Like I think it's the
yeah
elite defensemen can kind of have their fingerprints on their game more
yeah
than an elite forward can.
yeah I definitely use that statement. I just think like as I mean, when I said percent, I mean like 6% of the offensive time when on the percentage like offensive defensive, 6% of the time when McKinnon's on the ice without McCarr, it's in the offensive zone. Whereas
Mhm.
when McKinnon and McCarr are on the ice together, at least for last this year and last year, it's been 50%.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's what I'm
also
kind
just
of
because Colorado's goaltenders have been sieves this year.
yeah, but that doesn't have much to
That's
do
not
with
really
goaltending.
goaltending related
That's
though.
that's
That's
offense and
possession.
defensive. So
That's
I'm
just
kind of
offense possession. Okay.
yeah, that's possession wise. So it is interesting to
Okay,
see.
possession.
Like Canucks all go through, like I said, Hughes. Like
And
Hmm.
the Canucks
everything.
are the most like visually possession driven team in the
Yeah,
NHL. Like when you
yeah,
watch them versus Nashville, they would pass the puck around and around and around. They take like 13, 15 shots a game and score like three or
I
four
know.
goals.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well,
insane.
it's the
And it
reason why
works.
last it's the reason why last year they had such a skewed shooting percentage is
Yeah,
because
everyone was like, "Oh,
they
they're on a
don't shoot.
PDO bender. They're on a PDO bender." No, they just only shoot when it's like the perfect
And
like high percentage angle with like they're just so picky, but they can play that way because they have a player like Hughes
yes.
who you can just he's always in the right place because
Yeah.
he's just a better skater than everyone
And
else on the ice.
he's hit his point now in his career and his skill level that he can do it. Like he's tried to do it when he first got in as a rookie, and he wasn't the skill level. And it's only really last year where he's grown so much. Like, he had like a huge skill growth spurt where he's able to just literally manhandle all the players when it comes to stick handling the puck around them. Like he will lose you in a matter of seconds, and like you just can't do anything to stop him. The only
Mhm.
people I'd say would be like McDavid, like someone who's literally at
Yeah,
that same skill level
it's like
could.
a switch flipped in Hughes at some
Yeah,
point. I don't know what happened. If it's like
I
as
think
soon
it
as
was a
his
C.
brothers got in the league and got more competitive, it was a C or something. But he just got like he's always been a competitive guy, but
Yeah,
he it
I
seems he
feel
just
like it
got
might have been
mad.
a size thing where when you get into the league, usually you're smaller, you're not as like physically built, and he probably just had like a couple off seasons where he trained really hard, and then suddenly some of the moves where he would just get knocked off the puck, he then was strong enough to actually maintain control and do all the things that he was able to do in junior.
I think a lot of it comes from actually having a C. Like last year was the best example of him, of his skill wise, and last year's the first year was a C. Like I think if
That
that doesn't
does something there. Like
like
I feel like
I
that.
think this the pressure and the responsibility that comes from having that letter on his chest has really helped just improved him, like his way he views himself. Like he realized, like 'cause when Paul Harvey got traded, there was two names being mentioned for that seat. It was PD and Quinn. So and no one really knew who was going to go with. It's kind of between the two.
In retrospect, it should have been between Miller and
Yeah, but
Hughes.
this is back
Yeah, but
when
you can't do that when Miller's just got
Miller
there.
Miller hasn't even signed
Oh,
yet too. This is
to be fair, yeah,
like
no, totally.
Miller had yet to
Miller
sign his
just got
8 year
there, he hadn't
deal.
signed.
Yeah, like and Miller was
But
kind
if
of
they
also
had have given the captaincy to Pettersson, what a disaster the team would be right now.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't have worked out.
No doubt. The player already cannot stay out of his own head. Like Logan, you and I were talking about like, okay, he makes $11.6 million a year, but he needs to be matched up against a second line to be productive. Like he needs a Miller ahead of him. He shouldn't need a Miller ahead of him.
And he hasn't been productive still.
That's not an $11.6 million player.
Like if you
Like
have
like
Miller
Dry
getting
like
100, like if they
Drysaitl's
both get
salary isn't
100 points,
because he can only like if you got rid of McDavid, Drysaitel would be the number one center on the Oilers, and he would still be
yeah.
over a point. He'd be 120 points a year, no problem.
Yeah.
Miller's gone on the Canucks. Petey's number one center. He's gonna get fucking caved. He'd never have the puck. Like unless Hughes is on the icing and someone gets the puck for him and pass, like he's just not. He doesn't drive play. Like for that much money, you need to drive play. He's a complementary piece right now. He's not a player that, when the puck's on the stick and he walks in the zone, you think that puck's going in the fucking net. Like when McKinnon picks up the puck in the neutral zone, when Matthews picks up the puck in the neutral zone, when Draisaitl picks up the puck in the neutral zone, when Pasternak picks up, you know what I mean? I can go on and on and on. I could name so many players. Pettersson isn't one of those players.
And it's weird
He
because
stands in
there
the
were a
side and he
couple
might take a
seasons where
shot,
he
like
seemed like that type of player as
make a
well.
seam pass or something, but he's more like Marner,
Mhm.
And it's like Marner's good. He's a good player and stuff, but like
Mhm.
it's not like that's not the
Mhm.
guy. Like in Toronto, Matthews is the guy. And then like
Mhm.
Marner and Nylander are like the surrounding guys. In Vancouver, Hughes is
Well,
the
also I
guy.
will
And then
talk
there's
to your point
Miller.
about contracts as well. When you mention a Nylander, Nylander's on the second line making 11 and a half. But
And
also Nylander, I've as someone who watches the Leafs games as well, fully dry. Like you see Nylander, he's a player you see him pick up the puck in the middle of the ice, and it's like, oh, he's gonna do something right now because he has that drive to get to the net, and he could sustain his own line that PD doesn't have.
yeah,
I just think it's ridiculous that he's somehow commanded that sell. Like we gave like the amount of shit that we gave Swayman. Um, Despite the fact that he's never really disappointed with his play. Like the arguments against Swayman were like, oh,
He just
he
hasn't
wasn't
done
like
it
the
enough.
starter, he hasn't done enough or whatever. But like in the games that he's been there, he's been very consistent. Like he doesn't really have like a bad game. How many bad games does Pettersson have?
Well, I think a comparison, like in terms of goalies, you look Ottinger just signed the exact same contract as Swayman. And let's say, and if Ottinger signs that and Swayman's unsigned, I don't bat an eye at it because Ottinger has played longer and he's proven that he is deserving of that much money. I think
Yeah.
Ottinger's an excellent goalie
And
and
Audrey's
he's
been in
been
the starter
consistent.
role, but
And he's been in the starting role for a couple of years now.
yeah, he's proven
But
that he's
now,
a starter.
so like they're now on the exact same contract. And sure, Swayman might pan out the exact same way. It's just he hasn't proven as much, especially in the regular, like in terms of amount of play.
Mhm.
I just don't really see it with this player in Pettersson. Like I know he's a good player and stuff, but he's just like $11.6 million. You need to be able to drive a line,
I find it really
I,
weird because I
a
swear
top
there was a
line.
couple seasons in there where he was and he looked
It's
like
been
a
so
killer.
long though.
actually, the one
But
thing I
I
would
don't know
like to,
what happened to him then.
the one thing I will say for PD is that he has been suffering, at least last year, from some weak wingers with him, and I only really
Yeah,
seen
but he should be
like
able to
last.
drive his line.
Yeah, but if you have some weak wingers with you, it's hard to produce offensively. With two guys who kind of
Not
withhold
if you're
back.
top center. Do you remember? I remember at one point
Even
because the
McDavid has
Penguins were
struggled.
done. Now Crosby is the best player of
Like
the
no, yeah,
generation,
like Logan, I get
but
where you're
this is an
coming
extreme
from.
example. I remember for like a stretch in a season once, Crosby's wingers were Zach Aston Reese and Dominic Simon,
Yeah,
and
dude, like
they were amazing.
yeah,
Like
this
That's
is where
they
the
were just
fucking
unfair.
meme
amazing. So
comes from.
like
The Radek
you put
Bulk
Patterson with
meme where
two
it's like you look
okay
it up and he
ones,
has
like
40 goals playing next to Crosby.
now
That's an
neither
un
of those guys, like Simon, basically as soon as he was traded, slipped out of the NHL immediately. Zach Aston Reese was a perennial fourth line guy.
Yeah, man.
Like Pettersson wasn't given fourth liners on his wing.
I mean,
No.
Mikheyev is a fourth rounder now, or he's
And he
I think
also
he's
doesn't get
third.
the hardest matchups.
No.
Yeah, well, that's also unfair because
Okay,
Crosby
you know what?
is
Like the
a
wingers are
Okay,
there
no.
generation
on the
This is
talent.
my
Canucks. Why
thing.
is okay?
Crosby
Why
is
isn't
the best
Pettersson
of his
playing with the best
generation.
wingers on the Canucks? Why isn't he playing with the best? Because he's not the fucking best forward. He's not. He sucks. Like you have Miller, Besser, DeBrusk, like any
Yeah.
one of those
Garland
guys you
and
could put next to
Hoglander.
Petey,
I think
like
those are top
You
Garland,
six.
look at it
Hoglander,
last
like
year where he had a really good
they're a good
time when
team.
he was playing on the wing with Miller and Besser. He was like that line looked amazing, and then he just basically got exposed as soon as they actually set up a lineup that was deep and put him at second line center, and then
He's their
Well,
suddenly he
highest
can't produce
so
played.
anymore.
He's their highest paid forward by a full Connor Garland salary. You're
Yeah.
telling me you couldn't have signed Pettersson at 9, a million over Miller, and then added a fucking another $4 or $5 million forward to that group?
the one thing I would like to add on is that
Or an actual
with
fucking
his
defenseman that can get the fucking puck out?
with his new line mates,
Jeez.
he has actually produced at a 3-point rate, or his 2-point rate. He got 2 assists,
In
or he
five
got
games.
he once no in his last 2 lines he got 1 assist and like
Okay, cool. That's
12
good.
blocks, or 8 blocks,
Wait,
and then
I'm
six
not
hits.
sure I understand. What's
And
the
that's
stat line?
it's like 1 assist, 8 blocks, 6 hits in his last 2 games with his new line mates of Garland and Hoglander. I think they've had the high, like extremely high
He's a point
offensive
a
possession
game.
rates. He's half a point a game currently, but it's in
Half a
two
point a
games.
game.
In two
He
games.
should be at point a game minimum.
In two
Cole
games, one
Caulfield's a
thing was
goal a
against
game and he makes under $8 million a year and he got locked up for 8 years.
right.
That's
And
what happens when you have a general manager who can actually fucking understand the numbers and doesn't just give people money because the fans like him. Pedersen shouldn't be sniffing $10 million. He has not earned it. It's
he
all
also
based on potential / what he once looked like / whatever. But like the last 2 years,
Mm-mm.
like
He
the
basically had
Canucks
like a
have been
good
good,
2 months last year, right before he signed.
but the Canucks aren't good because of Pedersen. You know what I mean? Like he's
No,
not
he's
like
not the reason.
you take McDavid and Draisaitl off the Oilers, and that's like a bottom 5 team. You know what I
You
mean?
take Draisaitl off the Oilers, and they are
You take
seriously
Pedersen off of the
hurt.
Canucks, they're
The
still a
second line
playoff
center.
team, right?
yeah. So
Mhm.
Like if you
last
remove
year,
Pedersen from the
You
Canucks
take
last year, they might not win the
Nylander off
division, but
Toronto, and they're
yeah,
seriously
they're
flawed.
still a
He's the
playoff
second
team.
line driver.
No, I
What
honestly think
Pedersen should be.
If you took Nylander off the Leafs, they would still make the playoffs.
They would, but
But
they would be seriously hurt. I think they
no,
would be
it would
more
be a lot worse.
impacted than that was our comparable for the $11 million second line
Also,
driver.
doesn't Nylander still make less than Pedersen?
11.5.
Yeah, so that's less than Pedersen.
Okay, I don't. What does
Um,
Pedersen make again?
11.6.
Okay, well, he makes 100K less.
like
But also,
what?
but Nylander last year after he signed his big contract also went down too.
He did. He
It-
also got
and
injured.
and he's also well, even before that, he did. I know a big drop off in his
He's not Swedish
point
like
production.
Pedersen's Swedish though.
He's not from
Well, he's actually born
in
in
Canada.
Canada, so
But like he doesn't read like he's Swedish, but like when you see
Yeah.
him like fucking yelling at Matthews and Marner on the bench, that's not a Swedish player doing that.
that's
That's the
not
Canadian in him.
Yeah,
it's the
You know what I
Canadian.
mean?
I would
Yeah.
just happen to be born in Calgary.
Like, could you imagine telling fucking Austin Matthews to shoot the fucking puck? Like the
Yeah, I
balls.
found that insane as well. How everyone, you just saw the clips there,
Oh
you thought it
man.
was directed at Marner, but it really was him and Matthews beaking at each other.
Like Matthews needs to
I
be
need to
told
actually
that. I mean,
watch
to be
that
fair,
full
he kind of
show.
did, but
I need to
yeah,
watch
no.
that full show. I really want
I
to.
mean, I've heard mixed things. I don't know,
I
but
just still, I'm curious. I want to see it. There's only 6 episodes.
fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, I have a bone. I guess I just have a bone to
Okay.
pick with Pettersson because he's just.
Here's something which I want to
don't
point
get
out.
it. I don't understand with this player.
Wait, here's one something. So in 609 games, William Nylander has 535 points.
Okay,
Okay.
Yes.
that's
He has
pretty good.
11. He has $11.5 million contract. In
That's a
412
lot of
games,
money.
in 412 games, Peterson has 414 points. I mean, he
I
has
think you got to look at recent.
that's
I think
that's
you got to think about recency bias for both
roughly
these players,
two
though.
seasons.
When you're considering both these players,
So,
recency bias
Also,
is huge.
Last two
The
seasons,
Canucks have made the playoffs like fucking once since COVID. Versus
yeah,
the Leafs are in it every single year. Sure, when they get to the playoffs, they do anything, but they
No.
make the playoffs. There's a lock for the playoffs. August, July, June, October. It doesn't matter what month it is.
Yeah.
Everyone asks you, it's like, yeah, the Leafs are going to make the playoffs.
Also, if
That's
you're
why
questioning
but that's
Nylander's
why those
play,
players got paid that money. The
if
Canucks,
you're questioning
no
his
one
salary
thought they were
too,
going to be in the playoffs last year. They suddenly got good,
okay,
and it's
Logan,
like, oh,
if
now we
you're-
can
if you're
justify these
questioning that stat line
contracts.
as well, for the past for I don't know, since the Montreal series, Nylander has been the only consistently good Leaf in the playoffs out of the entire
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, no.
He warrants the contract from that alone. Whereas has Petey
I'd say consistently good Leafs forward, but sure.
consistently good Leaf forward? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm just not going to good enough to win it.
yeah. It's because
Like,
everyone.
They got to win one
honestly,
series.
like even like
this,
their
this sounds like
depth hasn't
someone who
been bad in the
hasn't
playoffs.
really
It's
been
just their
watching the
stars
games
that have
here.
been bad. What's
They
that?
won one series. I'm just
Yeah, they won a
arguing
series. The whole team's fallen off a cliff.
Yeah,
I just
I'm
realized
saying
you're questioning the one guy who's been consistently good for them.
no. I'm just using him as an example because we talk about similar
Yeah,
contracts.
we're using
11.5,
Willie as a
11.6.
comparable for Petey and basically
I'm saying, here's
even
what-
even this
Yeah.
player who often people are like he plays for a team and then they've disappointed and stuff is
Yeah.
still above Pettersson.
Yeah, I think it's a good comparable
Another thing I would like to say is that
between the two, and one of them has
Stat-wise-
currently been doing has currently one of them has been living up to their new contract. The other hasn't.
yeah. So and also stat wise, the last 2 years, for Nylander, he's got 87 and 98 points in the last two seasons, and PD went 109 and 89.
I mean, okay.
So-
What am I 89?
Like, yeah. But
Yeah.
I
No.
don't want to just talk about points and numbers and stuff. Like I want to talk about like what we see on the ice. Like when I
Exactly.
watch a Canucks game,
He's not
what I
driving his
see on the
lines.
ice with Pettersson is a perimeter player who doesn't like if you didn't know he was a star, you wouldn't really be able to tell with the way he's playing lately. Like if you didn't already
No,
know
one,
who he
two,
is and you just started watching hockey, you watched the Canucks, be like, oh, that 43 guy is really good at skating, Or man, that I don't know what Connor Garland's number, but he skates really hard to the net, right? Numbers of JT Miller, man, that guy is really whenever he's defending a player, like he's on his ass. Like Pettersson, like what's his thing? Like he used to have that wicked shot where it'd be a laser.
Yeah, he did.
accurate,
He was
hard,
he had such a good
ripped
shot.
it, fast, clean wrister. I've not really seen that anymore.
Pedersen, I'm
It's
pretty
gone,
sure he
kinda
was
gone.
didn't Pedersen win a hardest shot competition in an All-Star game
Yes.
once?
He did, yes, 2 years
Like,
ago.
He was one. He looked like he was going to have one of the best shots in the NHL, and now I watch Emil
doesn't
Heineman
shoot
on the
for whatever
Canadians,
reason.
and I'm like, that guy has a good shot. Way better than fucking Pettersson.
I feel like Pedersen, for whatever reason,
a fucking
stopped
waiver
shooting,
or
and I
not
don't
waiver,
know
but
why.
trade throw in guy who's just a guy, and I look at his shot, and I go, and then Pettersson, this guy that was known for it was like this Pettersson shot, like where has it been? Like okay, he's been hurt. Don't play then. Heal. Get better. We're paying $11.6 million a year. Get on IR. We'll get another guy in the meantime. Fucking heal yourself, come back and rip piss missiles again so we can fucking win games, man.
Yeah,
You're
like
against
also if
second line
it's a couple
matchups. Like,
seasons, what's the injury? It's not like the Canucks haven't had time off. Like they
who
made the play, they only just made the playoffs last year. Like if you've been injured for a few
I want to say that. Oh,
seasons,
that's a pretty. I want to say just make the playoffs. They had a pretty substantial lead going into it. Like I get what you mean by say just, but I say they made the playoffs last year. That's kind of
they've owned. Sorry, that yeah.
they've only
Sorry,
made the
what I
playoffs
meant to
once.
say is they've only made the playoffs last year. Not like
Yeah.
they barely made. Like out of the past few years, it was just last year they made it. That's what I meant by that.
So
And it was a fucking shock to everybody. No one honestly was like, yeah, the Canucks are going to make the playoffs and win the division. It was a complete, like,
No,
no one saw that shit coming.
and then
You
you
know what I
think as
mean?
well, Pettersson's probably over 100 points. Nope.
Results pending. That might even just be a fluke. Like,
We'll
have
yeah,
see.
we
The
seen
Canucks have
any evidence
now.
that this Canucks team right now is anywhere near as good as they were last year? Starting the season last year, they were a fucking wagon and they did not really slow down. They kind of slowed down in the sense that you can't win literally every game, but they still were a wagon. This year they've looked mid, man.
It
And
looked
yeah, I
really
get it.
beatable.
They're hurt and they're missing Joshua and stuff like that, but like that level of play, like the system that they were playing, the hockey that they were playing, like it's just they're playing hard and they're playing not poorly, but the lethality there. Like the Canucks last year, like you give them like a chance, like you leave a guy open, like they were lethal.
Yeah.
They're not lethal this year. And Pettersson's a big reason why they need like he's a guy that needs to step up if they're going to be lethal, kind of like the Oilers. Oilers haven't been great either, but like McDavid and Draisaitl, they've proven it. They've got the benefit of the doubt. Even
Yeah, no
last
one
year they
ever
had a shit
questioned the
start and they
Oilers.
still made up for it. Pettersson's not that guy. Like, yeah, he's had good years, but the bad years I think tell more about this player than the good years do. Like the bad years that he's had do not justify him making $11.6 million. Sure, he should make a lot of money. I'm not arguing with that, but that is elite level money for a player who just simply cannot be the guy. Like if you like again, we'll go back to the Leafs. If you got rid of Matthews and Marner and put Nylander on the top line winger or something, he could be the guy. Like he's that good. He's good enough. Like
Yeah.
yes, he's playing lower in the lineup because they have good players, but his salary is still justified. Like if you got rid of Miller and you put Pettersson as number one center on the Vancouver
Vancouver would
Canucks,
seriously struggle.
he's gonna get caved. Like he needs a power forward or someone as a winger to get him the puck to be anywhere useful. And he shouldn't because he's a big enough guy. Like he can play a mean game.
Now it's suddenly like he needs a power forward. He needs like a sniper on his line where it's like he was supposed to be like he's a big guy who should be able to create his own space and
Like
rip the puck.
if you put
And now
Cole Caulfield's
what does it
brain
make him?
in Elias Pettersson's body, that's like a top 3-5 player in the NHL.
And
Because when you watch
that's
if
what
you
we
watch a Habs
expected,
game and
especially like after
you
watching him
watch
for a couple
Caulfield,
years.
that dude goes in the corners and throws hits. He's fucking
It's
tiny, but he
great. I
like
love it.
no, it's effective. Like he can cause turnovers and shit. And like if that tiny guy can do it and get into the dirty areas, and when he rips a puck, do it. Why can't Pettersson? And he only makes
Exactly.
$7.8 million a year. Like Caulfield has 6 goals in 6 games this season. Nowhere near the same level of support that the Canucks have. Nowhere
Nope.
near the same level of skill that Pettersson has. Arguably, they both have that elite shot, but like as far as the rest of the tools that make like a hockey player go, when you compare like Caulfield and Pettersson, like Pettersson kind of wins in every category, but Caulfield's just destroying him up and down the ice, playing on the first line, shitty fucking Habs, 6 goals a game, shots lethal. Why can't Pettersson do that? He's like 6'2", right? He's a big guy. He's tall. Like he's not super. Like he's not built, but he's big. He could bulk up. He could go into the corners. He could get into the dirty areas. He could throw a mean check and cause a turnover and get the puck and rip it, but he just doesn't. You know what I mean? Like when you watch him, it's like Logan, you were saying, like he's in his head. Like he just doesn't. He doesn't have that like some players, like you can tell they're not really thinking. They're just like they get on the ice and they're like a bull. You know what I mean? They just go
so
for it. They whatever. If they make a mistake, they shake it off. Whatever, water off
Mhm.
the back, like whatever. Like if you're gonna, every player makes mistakes. If you're gonna play hard, you gotta take the good with the bad. But Pettersson plays like he's so afraid of making a mistake that he'd rather not do anything and not contribute to the game and not make a mistake than make a play that could win you the game.
the one thing I do want to add on here is that you were comparing Caulfield to PD about hits and stuff.
Mhm.
PD is a big hitter. He is hitting that. He's thrown twice as many hits as Caulfield has this year so far. in one less game,
That's not
and
bad. That's pretty good.
he has twice the amount of block shots as Coffee has so far. So
But
Mhm.
like also that
Petey
just
is
tells me
more of a
that whenever
defensive
he's on
team
the ice,
player.
he never has the fucking puck.
Well, he's also a defensive player. Like when it comes down to what they need Petey to do,
He's a what?
he's a two-way forward. He
He's a
plays.
two-way forward?
Petey
No,
is
man.
Petey
He's either
came
a
in.
defensive player or he's a two-way.
Petey came in as a two-way
Where are the
forward.
numbers? He's not. Oh, he came in as a two-way, but he's not. They sure shit ain't that now. He's
He
got two
has
points in 5 games. That's not two-way
well,
forward. That's
it's
a
been
that's a
mostly
good
defense.
defensive
But
forward. That doesn't make you $11.6 million a year.
well,
If
last year,
if defensive forwards got $11.6 million a year, Phil Deneau would be making $15 million a year because that player is the best defensive forward in the league, and he's basically equivalent to just like a canceling out a star player on the opposite team. You have
Yeah.
Phil Deneau as a center, and that basically, if you're up against Matthews, McDavid, you can just wipe it. That's a wash, and then you can win on your depth. Pettersson's not like that. He's not.
Unless you're against the Oilers. No, we can't. We can't. I don't think we can throw McDavid in that one because of what's happened to the Kings the past few years.
yeah,
Like, okay, I'm not saying Pettersson's a bad player, but
He
I'm
just
saying
needs to
that
show that he's earned this
No, I agree.
contract,
given
which he
given the
Yeah,
hasn't
team
done.
is on, given his role and given his salary and given the past few years, like he needs to pick it up because it's just like he should be eating these second line matchups alive based on what the firepower the Canucks have on their offense, the way they can move the puck in the back end. Obviously, you don't have quite as good of goaltending, but I don't think that affects it as much. I mean, to be fair, the Canucks do play a different game, whether Demko's in net or not. They're a lot more aggressive in the defensive zone with Demko in
Hmm.
net versus they
They're
play a lot
more
more
they're
passively
more
with a guy
confident
like
with that.
Shilovs. Yeah, well, it's like they're more willing to like go for a 1v1, like a 50-50 kind of thing. Because they know they either get the takeaway or if they get walked, Demko's got the save. Versus like if you got Shilovs in net, you might not be willing to do that. You might be willing to stay back and block the shot if they try to shoot, which is like when you're that mentality of play isn't gonna like win. Like the best
No,
teams, the teams that really want to win aren't afraid to lose. You know what I mean? They're so focused on winning, they don't even think about losing. And that's
exactly.
not that's not how like that's how when I watch like JT Miller, like that's how he plays. He wants to
Yeah,
win so bad that he's not really afraid of losing.
you don't think about what happens if
No.
something goes wrong. You need to have that confidence in your team as well, because that's the type of thing that eats away the locker room. If you're playing that way, it shows that you don't have confidence in the people around you, which is like that's what's crucial with any team that wants to have any success in here is just even if they're having a rough stretch, just trusting the player next to you or behind you. You have to be able to push any doubt away.
But
Otherwise,
like
they'll
this
eat
is
you
a this is
alive.
a player that we know who doesn't like love the pressure. Like it's not like a guy where you look and it's like, yeah, Pettersson, that guy, he wants all eyes on him. He wants all the pressure on him. No, he plays in Vancouver. That's a hard market to play in. You take $11.6 million, you do not get to complain about pressure or any of that anymore. I don't want to hear any of that ever again. Any issue with Pettersson better just be damn well like physical injuries or something. Because the moment you sign that number, you put a target on your back, and if the team's not doing well, it's your fault. $11.6 million. Who makes more than that? Like, there's a
uh,
few players that make more than that.
And
And
all of
there's a
them are like
lot of
top
players that make
players in the
less than
league.
that,
yeah.
that if you swapped Pettersson for some of those players, the Canucks would be as good, if not maybe better.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I've said my point. I think he's a good player. I think he has the
Yeah.
talent. The reason why it's so frustrating is because we've seen it and he can do it, but it's just not consistent. And it's been a while since we've seen that like elite, like holy fucking shit. How can you stop this guy? That we've seen flashes of like,
Mm.
but he's been unbelievable, and it's just hasn't quite been there. Like, okay, yeah, he's hitting more, good. He's blocking shots. All right, great. You don't play players $11.6 million to block shots. Like, yes, it's good that the player's doing that, but that's not like the expectations when you
It's
make
not what he's
eleven
being
point six
paid
million
for.
dollars is so high. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's only 5 games or whatever, and the Canucks record's shit, and they don't have a fucking goalie, and it's like they have injuries and all that shit. This is the time. This is when the star players need to elevate and carry their team on their back while, you're having these problems so that when these guys get back, you're in a spot where you can jump ahead. You know what I mean? Like if guys are out, it's next man up mentality, and it kind of just hasn't really been there.
Mhm.
Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a hat trick tonight. Actually, if I want him to do that, I should rest him in fantasy or trade him. Because if I keep him on the roster, guarantee he ain't
Yeah,
getting
you have to trade
anything.
him for that to happen. He's
Yeah,
gonna score
exactly. But
5 goals.
and hey, if he starts turning around and looking like not just like a good player, but like the superstar that he is, I will give him all the flowers he needs. But right now, I'm just
Yeah, we've seen it. It just like it's basically we need to see he needs to do what we've seen before, which like
yeah. Well, like I've been watching the
shouldn't be too
Canadians
hard. Too
a
hard.
lot, and their first line have been getting like killed on the ice. Like they're
Which
not
team,
playing well,
sorry?
and there's the Canadians. Their
Oh
first
yeah,
line has
but they're
has,
still
been, has not
scoring.
been playing well, but they're still like a point a game. Like
Yeah,
they've been visually not great, but even in spite of that, they're still a point a game. And it's like, okay, well, they can play better. So once they play better, they'll at least be a point a game, maybe even above. With Pettersson, like he's been playing fine and is way below a point a game, and is like double the salary, if not triple, of like most of the players on his team, man. It's just not good enough.
Mhm.
Okay, we need to retitle this pod to the Pettersson Sucks
I think
show
it
because
is.
this
I
is
think it might be time
this
to
is this is
move
good.
on a little bit.
Yeah, we can move on from this.